Hello fellow cyborgs, and welcome to another video in the Brontë Binge 2019 series where I read all 7 novels by the Brontë sisters and then probably some other stuff too and talk to you about it. So I am going to talk to you about The Professor by Charlotte Brontë, as you already knew from not only the clip thumbnail, that's what it's called, but also the title. So The Professor, I feel like, is that and maybe Agnes Grey are the two most likely Brontë novels that you have not read. Okay, so there are many reasons why, well, not many, there's like one reason why you probably haven't read The Professor, and that's because it's like proto-Villette is what a lot of people have heard, that a lot of the themes and even the setting, the life experience that Charlotte Brontë drew on for writing The Professor, she similarly drew on for writing Villette. But where The Professor is small and the first novel attempt by Charlotte Brontë, Villette is the final masterpiece, some people would argue, novel attempt by Charlotte Brontë with a female protagonist and more complicated theming. So a lot of people think if I have to pick between The Professor and Villette, I'm definitely going to read Villette. That's certainly what my thinking was before deciding that I was going to do this Brontë project, was why read The Professor if I can just read the better version of it, which is Villette. However, I would like to tell you that this is an incorrect thought. As you could tell, I went into The Professor thinking I was just going to read proto-Villette, but actually this is so much more different than Villette than I was expecting it to be, and had very, very interesting things in here to think about that were entirely disconnected from Villette. Because there was so many new things to discover in here than I was expecting, I was so pleasantly surprised by this reading experience that I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. I was expecting this to be a boring slog that reminded me of something I knew pretty well, and I was expecting not to enjoy this reading experience very much, but I was so mistaken. So let me tell you the bare bones about the story of The Professor. The Professor, the title character, is William Crimsworth. He is a young man who was orphaned very early, though he has an older brother who's about 10 years his senior. His mother's wealthy relations are guilt-tripped into paying for William's education, but they offer him no affection and no really place called home. After being educated, William decides to go work for his older brother Edward, but that doesn't turn out the way that he'd like it to, and he also keeps getting bothered by this aristocrat named Lord Hunsdon, who's just annoying and likes to laugh at William. William isn't happy with his situation under the employ of his brother and eventually makes his way to Belgium to find new fortunes and become The Professor. Once he reaches the shores of Belgium, that's when his new era of his life really comes to play, though in ways he wasn't really expecting at the beginning. I found the characters, the side characters specifically, to be a lot more enjoyable to read about than in Villette, actually. I found them a lot more welcoming, at least superficially, than those in Villette. I feel like Villette is a very standoffish sort of book. It's a book that doesn't really welcome you with open arms. Lucy, the narrator, will blatantly not tell you everything and then later tell you she had lied to you for 200 pages. And then we have characters who are like openly kind of deceitful and just not interested in really being welcoming forces. That sort of vibe was not really in here for me, though I can't say that all of these characters are super lovely, bubbly people. I think another big difference between The Professor and Villette is that William is not depressed. Lucy Snow most certainly is, and because the way that William is looking at the world isn't in shades of gray because of depression, this narrative has a less overwhelming sort of vibe to it. Why do I keep saying vibe? The thing that I really loved most about The Professor was realizing that William is as unreliable as a narrator as Lucy Snow. The way he describes himself and then the way he describes how people react to him don't match up. So I have a feeling that William is very not self-aware of who he is and how he interacts with people because everybody keeps getting really annoyed with him. So I think that he actually must be really annoying, but just doesn't realize it or doesn't want to tell the reader. So I super enjoyed second guessing everything that William had to say. This also did feel so distinctly Brontë. There is so much just like unnecessary violence, especially in scenes that should be romantic and gentle. It reminded me a lot of Mr. Rochester in Jane Eyre, and it just felt very Brontë when all of those things happened. I did like the ending of this as well. I think it wrapped things up. Things came full circle that I didn't really expect to. There was this one little thing, and I'm not going to tell you what it is, where it's a happy-go-lucky sort of scene, and then suddenly we're talking about something kind of devastating, and it's like, why did we need to go there, Charlotte? What? Oh, it's because you're a Brontë. So I recommend The Professor. If you have been thinking this is a Brontë you can just skip, I mean, I guess you can, but I think there are some really fun things in here for you to discover. And I think it's also, if you are more of a Brontë fan, it's fascinating to read The Professor knowing that the masterpiece, which is Jane Eyre, was written right after it. It is just simply mind-blowing when I think about it. So that's all I have to say about The Professor by Charlotte Brontë. Definitely don't miss it if you're interested, or especially if you enjoy Charlotte Bronte's prose. And I will be back to talk with you about another Brontë novel, hopefully pretty shortly. Thank you for watching, and until next time, continue to be lovely.